Hello, everyone. Got a few dirty jokes for you today.
So a woman was telling her friend, "It was I who made my husband a millionaire." The friend asked, "And what was he before you married him?" The woman replied, "A billionaire." So in the first year of marriage, the man speaks and the woman listens. In the second year, the woman speaks and the man listens. In the third year, they both speak and the neighbors listen. So a woman is driving on the highway for the first time when her husband calls. "Be careful, honey," he says. "I just heard on the radio that there's someone driving the wrong way on the highway." She yells back, "Someone? These bastards are in the hundreds." So an embarrassed man tells his doctor, "I've got a problem. I just can't get it up from my wife anymore." The doctor says, "Bring her in tomorrow, and I'll see what I can do." The next day, the worried man returns with his wife. The doctor greets them and says, "Mrs. Thomas, please remove your clothes." She complies, undressing fully. "Okay, now turn around and lie down, please." The doctor examines her carefully, then nods. "All right, you can get dressed now." While she's putting her clothes back on, the doctor pulls the husband aside. He looks the man in the eye and says, "You're perfectly healthy. And between you and me, your wife didn't get it up for me either." So if one day your wife is shouting at the front door and your dog is barking at the back door, who do you let in first? The answer is the dog, of course. At least he'll shut up after you let him in. So an old blind cowboy wanders into an all-girl biker bar by mistake. He finds his way to a bar stool and orders a shot of Jack Daniels. After sitting there for a while, he yells to the bartender, "Hey, you want to hear a blonde joke?" The bar immediately falls absolutely silent. In a very deep, husky voice, the woman next to him says, "Before you tell that joke, cowboy, I think it is only fair, given that you are blind, that you should know 5 things. The bartender is a blonde girl with a baseball bat. The bouncer is a blonde girl with a billy club. I'm a 6-foot-tall, 175-pound blonde woman with a black belt in karate. The woman sitting next to me is blonde and a professional weightlifter. The lady to your right is blonde and a professional wrestler. Now, think about it seriously, cowboy. Do you still want to tell that blonde joke?" The blind cowboy thinks for a second, shakes his head and mutters, "No. Not if I'm gonna have to explain it 5 times. So, an American soldier serving in World War II had just returned from several weeks of intense action on the German front lines. He was seated on a train bound for London. The train was very crowded, so the soldier walked the length of the train, looking for an empty seat. The only unoccupied seat was directly adjacent to a well-dressed middle-aged lady and was being used by her little dog. The war-weary soldier asked, "Please, may I sit in that seat?" The Englishwoman looked down her nose at the soldier, sniffed and said, "You Americans, you are such a rude class of people. Can't you see my little Fifi is using that seat?" The soldier walked away, determined to find a place to rest, but after another trip down to the end of the train, found himself again facing the woman with the dog. Again, he asked, "Please, lady, may I sit there? I'm very tired." The Englishwoman wrinkled her nose and snorted, "You Americans? Not only are you rude, you are also arrogant." The soldier didn't say anything else. He leaned over, picked up the little dog, tossed it out the window of the train, and sat down in the empty seat. The woman shrieked and railed and demanded that someone defend her and chastise the soldier. An English gentleman sitting across the aisle spoke up. "You know, sir, you Americans do seem to have a penchant for doing the wrong thing. You eat holding the fork in the wrong hand. You drive your cars on the wrong side of the road. And now, sir, you've thrown the wrong bitch out the window." So a man spots a stunning woman in a big supermarket and walks up to her. He says, "Excuse me, I've lost my wife somewhere in here. Would you mind talking to me for a couple of minutes?" She looks puzzled. "Why?" The man grins and says, "Because every time I start talking to a beautiful woman, my wife shows up out of nowhere." So a man in his mid-40s bought a new BMW and was out on the interstate for a nice evening drive. The top was down. The breeze was blowing through what was left of his hair, and he decided to see what the engine had. As the needle jumped up to 80 miles per hour, he suddenly saw flashing red and blue lights behind him. "There's no way they can catch a BMW," he thought to himself, and opened her up further. The needle hit 90, then 100, and finally reality hit him, and he knew he shouldn't run from the police, so he slowed down and pulled over. The cop came up to him, took his license without a word and examined it and the car. "It's been a long day. This is the end of my shift, and it's Friday the 13th. I don't feel like more paperwork, so if you can give me an excuse for your driving that I haven't heard before, you can go." The guy thinks for a second and says, "Last week, my wife ran off with a cop. I was afraid you were trying to give her back. Have a nice weekend," said the officer, and he walked away. So long time ago when I was young, I asked my grandpa, "Why are hurricanes always named after women?" He thought for a minute and then replied saying, "It's because when they arrive, they're wild and wet. But when they leave, they take your house and your car with them." So the husband walked into the kitchen and said, "Honey, I invited a friend over for supper tonight." "What? Are you out of your mind?" "The house is a mess. I haven't been shopping. All the dishes are dirty, and I'm not in the mood to cook a fancy meal." "I know all that," he said calmly. "Then why on earth would you invite a friend over?" The husband grinned. "Because he's thinking about getting married." So a groom waits at the altar with a huge smile on his face. His best man asks, "Why do you look so excited?" The groom replies, "I just had the best BJ I have ever had in my entire life, and I am marrying the wonderful woman who gave it to me." The bride waits at the other end of the aisle with a huge smile on her face. Her maid of honor asks, "Why do you look so excited?" The bride replies, "I just gave the last BJ of my entire life." So two women bump into each other. One says, "Me and my husband aren't together anymore." The other asks, "Why? What happened?" She sighs and says, "Well, could you live with someone who smokes, drinks too much, has no job, and curses all the time?" "No, of course not." The friend replies, "Yeah, well, he couldn't either." So the CIA had 3 candidates, 2 men and a woman, for one assassin position. On the final day of testing, the proctor led the first male candidate to a heavy steel door and handed him a gun. "We need to know you'll follow orders no matter what," he said. "Inside this room, you'll find your wife sitting in a chair. Take this gun and kill her." The man was horrified. "You can't be serious. I could never shoot my wife." Then you're not the right man for the job, the proctor said. Next, they brought in the second male candidate and gave him the same instructions. He took the gun, walked in, and the door closed behind him. After 3 tense minutes, he walked out in tears. I tried, he said, but I just couldn't pull the trigger. Then you're not the right man for the job either, the proctor told him. Finally, the female candidate stepped up. The proctor handed her the gun and gave her the same instructions. Kill your husband. She nodded, walked in, and before the door even closed, 6 shots rang out. Then came the chaos, screaming, cursing, crashing, and silence. The door opened slowly. The woman stepped out, wiping the sweat from her forehead. She said the gun was loaded with blanks. I had to beat the bastard to death with the chair. So, a woman's husband had been slipping in and out of a coma for several months, yet she had stayed by his bedside every single day. One day, when he woke up, he motioned for her to come nearer. As she sat by him, he whispered with eyes full of tears, "You have been with me all through the bad times. When I got fired, you were there to support me. When my business failed, you were there. When I got shot, you were by my side. When we lost the house, you stayed right here. When my health started failing, you were still by my side. And there is something I must say." "What, dear?" she asked gently, smiling as her heart began to fill with warmth. "I think you're bad luck." So, Thomas is 32 years old, and he is still single. One day, a friend asked, "Why aren't you married? Can't you find a woman who will be a good wife?" Thomas replied, "Actually, I've found many women I wanted to marry. But when I bring them home to meet my parents, my mother doesn't like them." His friend thinks for a moment and says, "I've got the perfect solution. Just find a girl who's just like your mother." A few months later, they meet again, and his friend says, "Did you find the perfect girl? Did your mother like her?" With a frown on his face, Thomas answers, "Yes, I found the perfect girl. She was just like my mother. You were right. My mother liked her very much." The friend said, "Then what's the problem?" Thomas replied, "My father doesn't like her." So a man was shaving in the bathroom when Bubba, the kid he paid to mow his lawn, walked in to use the toilet. The man couldn't help but glance over his shoulder and was shocked. "Bubba, what's your secret?" Bubba shrugged and said, "Well, every night before I get in bed with a woman, I whack my manhood on the bedpost 3 times. That night, the man decided to give it a try. He climbed into bed and whacked his manhood on the bedpost 3 times. Suddenly, his wife sat up and said, "Bubba, is that you?" So I was on a train, and this woman sitting on the opposite side looked at me and said, "Every time you smile, I feel like inviting you to my place." I asked, "Are you single?" She replied, "No, I'm a dentist." So on the first night of their honeymoon, the bride turns to her husband and says, "I have a confession, I'm not a virgin. I've been with one other guy." "Oh, yeah? Who?" he asks. "Tiger Woods, the golfer." "Well," the husband says, "he's rich, famous, and good-looking." I guess I can understand that. They make passionate love, and when they're finished, the husband gets up and heads for the phone. "What are you doing?" she asks. "I'm starving. I'm calling room service." "Tiger wouldn't do that," she says. "Oh, yeah. What would Tiger do?" "He'd come back to bed and do it again." The husband drops the phone and goes another round. When they're finished, he staggers back to the phone. "What are you doing now?" she asks. "I'm still hungry. I'm calling room service for some food." "Tiger wouldn't do that," she says again. "Oh, yeah. What would Tiger do? He'd come back to bed and do it one more time." The husband groans, puts the phone down, and goes for round 3. Exhausted after the 3rd session, he drags himself back to the phone and starts to dial. "Are you calling room service now?" she asks. "No," he snaps. "I'm calling Tiger Woods to find out what's the par for this hole." So 3 women were talking about their teenage daughters. The first said, "Last week, I was cleaning my daughter's room and found a pack of cigarettes under her pillow. I had no idea she smoked." The second said, "That's nothing. I found a bottle of vodka hidden under my daughter's bed. I didn't even know she drank." The third woman smirked and said, "You think that's bad? I was cleaning my daughter's room and found a pack of condoms in her nightstand. I didn't even know she had a penis." So a wise man once told me that a successful man is one who makes more money than his wife can spend. So I asked him, "What about women?" He answered, "A successful woman is one who can find such a man." So a beautiful woman who had a golden little plain necklace was seated next to a guy on the plane. During the flight, all the time he was gazing at the necklace. The woman asked him, "Are you interested in my necklace?" The guy answered, "No, lady, I like its runway." So Mike walked into the bar and said to Charlie, the bartender, "Pour me a stiff one. Just had another fight with the little woman." "Oh, yeah," said Charlie. "And how did this one end?" When it was over, Mike replied, "She came to me on her hands and knees." "Really?" said Charles. "Now that's a switch." "What did she say?" "She said, 'Come out from under the bed, you little bastard.'" So a woman walks into a drugstore and asks the pharmacist if he sells size extra large condoms. He replies, "Yes, we do. Would you like to buy some?" She responds, "No, sir, but do you mind if I wait around here until someone does?" So an ugly, fat, bad woman with 2 kids enters Walmart, shouting angry at the kids with no reason. The man at the reception says cheerfully to her, "Good morning and welcome to Walmart. Cute kids. Are they twins?" The horrible woman stops shouting just enough to say, "Hell, they're not twins. The older is 9 and the other is 7. "Are you blind or just stupid?" "No, madam," replied the greeter. "I'm neither blind nor stupid. I just can't get that. There's a man out there who had made love with you twice." So 2 boys go into a forest and walk around. Suddenly, they see a naked woman. Then one of the boys run away. The other chases after him. The boy asked, "Why did you run away?" The other said, "My mom told me if I saw a naked woman, I'd turn to stone, and I already felt something getting hard." So Bob had been listening to his wife practicing her singing. "Honey," he said, "I wish you'd sing the songs about Women's Day." "That's nice of you, Bob," she said. "Why?" Bob grinned and said, "Then I would only have to hear you once a year." So a beautiful woman enters a bar and sits next to a lawyer. "Listen, honey," she says, "for $50, I'll do absolutely anything you want." The lawyer looks around, pulls $50 from his wallet and says, "Paint my house." So two engineering students were walking across campus when one said, "Where did you get such a great bike?" The second engineer replied, "Well, I was walking along yesterday minding my own business when a beautiful woman rode up on this bike. She threw the bike to the ground, took off all her clothes and said, 'Take what you want.'" The second engineer nodded approvingly. "Good choice. The clothes probably wouldn't have fit." So at a dancing party, a shy boy approached a girl and asked, "Will you dance with me, please?" The arrogant girl says, "I don't dance with a kid." The boy apologized. "I am sorry. I did not realize you were pregnant." So a man was invited for dinner at a friend's house. Every time the host needed something, he preceded his request to his wife by calling her "my love, darling, sweetheart," etc. His friend looked at him and said, "That's really nice after all of these years. You've been married to keep saying those little pet names." The host said, "Well, honestly, I've forgotten her name." So every day, a male coworker walks up very close to a lady at the coffee machine, inhales a big breath of air, and tells her that her hair smells nice. After a week of this, she can't stand it anymore, takes her complaint to a supervisor in the personnel department, and asks to file a sexual harassment grievance against him. The human resources supervisor is puzzled and asks, "What's threatening about a coworker telling you your hair smells nice?" The woman replies, "It's Frank, the midget." So a knight was getting ready for the crusade. He turned to his friend and told him, "My wife is the most beautiful girl in the world, and I can't imagine her being with someone else while I'm gone. You're my best friend and I trust you. Here's the key for her chastity belt. In case I never get back, unlock her and set her free." When the crusade knights were a mile away from the village, the knight gets an urgent message. "Mate, you gave me the wrong key." So I couldn't find my luggage at the airport baggage area and went to the lost luggage office and reported the loss. The woman there smiled and told me not to worry because she was a trained professional and said I was in good hands. "Now," she asked me, "has your plane arrived yet?" So a group of girlfriends is on vacation when they see a 5-story hotel with a sign that reads, "For women only." Since they are without their boyfriends and husbands, they decide to go in. The bouncer, a very attractive guy, explains to them how it works. "We have 5 floors. Go up floor by floor, and once you find what you are looking for, you can stay there. It's easy to decide, since each floor has a sign telling you what's inside." The women start going up, and on the first floor, the sign reads, "All the men here have it short and thin." The friends laugh, and without hesitation move on to the next floor. The sign on the second floor reads, "All the men here have it long and thin." Still, this isn't good enough, so the friends continue on up. They reach the third floor and the sign reads, "All the men here have it short and thick." They still want to do better, and so, knowing there are still 2 floors left, they continued on up. On the 4th floor, the sign is perfect. "All the men here have it long and thick." The women get all excited and are going in when they realize that there is still 1 floor left. Wondering what they are missing, they head on up to the 5th floor. There, they find a sign that reads, "There are no men here." This floor was built only to prove that there is no way to please a woman. So a masked man walks into a bank and holds it up at gunpoint to rob the bank. In the process of robbing the bank, his mask fell off. He quickly put it back on his face and asked the teller directly ahead of him if she saw his face. She admitted that she did, so he shot and killed her. He then turned to the teller that was beside the one her just killed and asked if she had also seen his face. She said that she did, and he shot and killed her too. He then turned to a man, a customer who just happened to be in the bank when the robbery was taking place. The robber asked the customer if he had seen his face. The customer replied, "No, but I'm pretty sure my wife did." So an elderly woman went to her doctor, complaining about not being able to hear out of one ear. The doctor then took his penlight, looked in her ear, then took his tweezers, reached in, and pulled something out. After examining the object for a second, he exclaimed, "Well, it seems you inserted a suppository into your ear." The old lady thought for a second, then responded, "I guess that explains why I can't find my hearing aid." So single women claim that all the good men are married, while all married women complain about their lousy husband. This confirms that there is no such thing as a good man. This confirms, too, that women are always confused and don't know what they want. So after a long day of coding, two programmers met up at their favorite pub to unwind. One of them leaned in and said, "You won't believe what happened to me yesterday. I met this really nice blonde at a bar. Smart, funny, the whole package." His friend chuckled. "So what you do?" "Well," he continued, "I invited her back to my place. We had a few drinks, and then she surprised me by asking if I could undress her." "No way. What did you do?" "I started slowly, got her blouse off, then her dress. She was sitting right next to my new laptop." The other programmer's eyes lit up. "Wait, you got a new laptop? What model is it?"